Well, I guess I gotta put the mask on, huh? Alright, well, if I gotta wear a mask, the camera has to be 6 feet apart. Because that's against COVID rules. Anyway, so my point being is, I want to talk about pandemic games today, and the games I played while being stuck in the pandemic. Let's get things started. Let's go.
I am Raiden, God of Thunder and Protector of Earth. I have chosen you mortals to represent Earth in Mortal Kombat. But be warned, although your souls are protected by Shaitan's evil, your health is not. Since the sickness has plagued your world, I cannot intervene in the tournament due to COVID-19 guidelines. So please, wear a mask, socially distance, and try not to infect the other in combat, because that is against the rules of Mortal Kombat. Now, I must consult the other gods.
Mortal Kombat! So let me open up by saying, Mortal Kombat is without a shadow of a doubt my favorite fighting game franchise. Whether it's the story, characters, or aesthetic, Mortal Kombat just clicked with me since birth. Mortal Kombat 11 dropped about a year and some change before the lockdown began, and I really wasn't big on it upon release. Coming off the superior Mortal Kombat X, MK11 felt like a downgrade to me. That was until the lockdown. Since I was at work and pretty much had nothing to do except mess around with my Switch and watch movies, I said screw it and bought the Switch port of MK11. The Switch port actually played pretty well. It just looked like complete trash. Now during this period of the pandemic, I played a hell out of MK11, and honestly, although it's not as good as MKX, Mortal Kombat 11 is still a competent fighter. The roster at launch, though missing some beloved characters from the series, some of which would later become DLC, had a lot of series mainstays from the get-go. If you know the song from The Immortals, then you already know what I'm talking about. Anyway, I ended up putting so much time into Mortal Kombat 11, learning the game's characters, combos, and matchups, that I would play MK11 at work, practice on the Switch, then go home, turn on my PS4, jump online, and practice my new skills. MK11 does have a lot of flaws, but to me it's still Mortal Kombat, and I'll never get tired of hearing, "Finish him!"
Here comes a new challenger!
No, I will not put a mask on. You can't make...
I see him.
What do you mean you got somebody paying attention to me? What do you mean somebody's watching? Alright, you know what? In full fairness, I'll start putting the mask on. How's this? Is this good? Does this look okay?
He has no miss.
Alright. There, you win. Happy?
Overwatch. Since we were on lockdown, and I missed the boys, we all decided to pick up a multiplayer game to play with one another. We ended up selecting Overwatch as that game. Now I dabbled in Overwatch when it first released, but never got serious about it, because I had no one to play with, and never been huge on multiplayer shooters. One thing I can say is the game definitely has a strict learning curve. There's something like 32 playable characters, so getting started was tough. There are 3 different classes in Overwatch, and you need 2 for each to have perfect team symmetry. These 3 classes are damage, tanks, and healers. In Overwatch, I say it's good to at least main 2 characters from each classes. For example, I play D.Va and Zarya as my tanks, Tracer and Ashe as my damage, and Moira and Mercy as my healers. When I started playing the game, I didn't know this concept, and mostly played Tracer. Tracer's supposed to grow up Overwatch, a damage-based character. Tracer's gameplay style fit with me perfectly, as she resembled my main Cammy from Street Fighter. That in-and-out style of dealing as much damage as possible, while at the same time annoying your opponents. After playing Tracer for a while, I began to find out the most frustrating thing about Overwatch. For some reason, people just don't want to play healers. For a majority of my time with Overwatch, I mostly played the Quick Play Classic game mode in the arcade, because it gives you the freedom to choose whoever you want, and doesn't lock you in specific classes as regular Quick Play does. When playing this mode, I realized my team would die a lot, and everyone in the side chat will be complaining about not having any healers. It was very rare to find players who were willing to play the healer, so I became strictly playing healers. It is here I found out that not only healers are essential to victories, but they're also very fun to play. I get this feeling of fulfillment when I'm healing my team and keeping them alive is my only purpose. I started out with Brigitte. and then went on to Mercy, and finally settled with Moira. After playing Overwatch for about 2 months, I can honestly say the game is a blast. Now don't get me wrong, it can be extremely toxic and frustrating at times. Trust me, there'll be most games where your team just doesn't help you, and you'll be ready to punch your TV screen. But no matter how badly the game went, or how epic our victory was, I'd always find myself asking, anyone up for another game?
Here comes a new challenger!
March 2020. Daylight. The pandemic has taken over the world. Somehow, I am not sick. It all began as an ordinary day in America. An ordinary day in New York City. A city controlled by the virus. No one dared to listen to the warnings. And that lack of focus would ultimately lead to their destruction. I suppose they had to suffer the consequences for the greater ignorance. But there would be no forgiveness, if only they had the courage to fight. It's true, once the pandemic began, nothing could stop it. Nothing. Getting vaccinated was the last chance of survival. And my last chance, my last to live a normal life again.
Resident Evil 3 Remake. Resident Evil 3 Remake was a game that I was waiting for a long time. Ever since the release of Resident Evil Remake back in 2002, I've been waiting for 2 and 3. After the godlike Resident Evil 2 Remake, I was overjoyed to hear that Capcom was finally finishing up the Raccoon City trilogy. When I finally got my hands on Resident Evil 3 Remake, I was ecstatic and I thought to myself, finally, we get to see the full Raccoon City that RT2 Remake showed glimpses of. That enthusiasm slowly turned into disappointment when I realized that Capcom cut out most of the original game's locations and plot points. Many players, including myself, had certain expectations for the remake that were shot down upon the first playthrough. Speaking of playthroughs, I ended up beating the game on release in about 3 hours. The game definitely was underwhelming to say the least. It's for this reason that RE3 Remake, to me, is more of a reimagining of the events of the original. Now with the negatives out of the way, I've really come to enjoy this game. Upon more playthroughs, Resident Evil 3 Remake has become my favorite I have an hour to kill game. Not to mention all the unlockables you can get from completing objectives in the game. Things like find all files or beat the game without using one healing item. The more I played it, the more I grew fond of it. I've done everything the game has to offer, and now just speedrun it when I have time to kill. I've played the game so much that I've actually dropped my time down to a little over an hour. I'm currently working towards an hour flat. All in all, I accept Resident Evil 3 Remake for what it was. In all honesty, it really should just been a DLC for Resident Evil 2 Remake.
Man, what does it matter that the lockdowns are being imposed? I'm immune, and I'm all about my revenge. Despite being the one person who can cure humanity from this virus, I'm gonna waste my blood, time, and energy on revenge. The Last of Us 2. The Last of Us 2, though controversial, turned out to be a great follow-up to the original released back in 2013. This time, it's taking place 5 years after the events of the first game, so we are seeing older versions of our beloved characters. While the first one was more about survival, the sequel is more about revenge, and how destructive it can be when it's consumed by anger and rage. The gameplay is solid, and does not disappoint. It's easy to get back into gear, as the gameplay is just a modified version of the first one. With the little changes added, it's still simple enough to get used to. The story is also a bit stronger in my opinion, as it tackles darker themes than its predecessor. The visuals are stunning, as it captures post-apocalyptic Seattle, Jackson, and a few other western cities overtaken by monsters and nature. The little details in the game are something to appreciate, so pay close attention to its environments. The Last of Us 2 is fun, engaging, and will leave you with an array of mixed feelings when you get to the climax of the game. Anything that toys with your emotions is sure to be a memorable experience.
blah, 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 blah. Lady Lavender, I notice you aren't wearing your mask. That's morally insensitive to others. Please put one on.
Just like it's morally insensitive for you to kidnap young girls, drug them, and take pictures of them without their consent?
Young lady, that's highly inappropriate. We'll speak about this later. See me after class.
Although his reaction was worth it, I shouldn't provoke Mr. Jefferson any further. Maybe I should consider my options here.
Life is Strange Before the Storm. Man, what can I say about Life is Strange? This is a unique case, as I usually don't play games in this point-and-click style. But one day I got bored and decided to check out the Xbox Marketplace. I ended up looking at this Life is Strange Before the Storm game. Something about the box art caught my eye, and it was like $3 for the deluxe edition, so I said screw it and I bought it on a whim. Before the Storm serves as the first entry in the series in that Devil May Cry 3 way of being a prequel. When I booted up the game, I didn't really know what to expect, until I was met with the opening of the game and the introduction of the one and only Chloe Price. Within the first conversation I had in the game, I got hooked. Her personality was off the charts. Chloe became the catalyst for my interest in Life is Strange. She kind of reminded me of myself, a massive shit talker who didn't give a damn what others thought about her. As I continued to play Before the Storm, I was very surprised about how much care was put into the story and characters. Without going into spoiler territory, because honestly, all these games are worth a playthrough on your own. As the game story progressed, I came to really care for Chloe and her struggles. From dealing with the loss of her father, and the relationship with one Rachel Amber. Chloe may be tough on the outside, but on the inside she's depressed and broken. When the game reached its conclusion, the very next thing I did was go back to the marketplace and buy the rest of the series. I wanted more. Luckily for me, the Life is Strange 16 games always seem to be on sale, and they're always cheap. In my opinion, Before the Storm is the most grounded in the series, because the next two games really get strange. Life is Strange. The original Life is Strange introduces superpowers into the fold. It is also a direct follow-up to Before the Storm. In Life is Strange, you control Max Caulfield, who has the power to rewind time. Max is Chloe's best friend, and for those who played Before the Storm first, know that Max left Chloe about 5 years ago when her father died. Throughout the game, you can see that the bond between Chloe and Max strengthens as the plot continues to progress. Unlike Chloe, who is stubborn, mischievous, and rebellious, Max is geeky, quite introverted, and self-conscious. Max prefers to look at the world through the lens of her camera instead of experiencing life firsthand. But as the game progresses, this begins to change, and Max becomes more open and confident. Unlike Before the Storm, Max's powers play a big part in the gameplay of Life is Strange. Her rewind powers are important, as they help you make decisions and solve puzzles. Life is Strange also has one of the most emotionally impactful endings I have ever had the honor of playing. It asks a very hard question that no matter how you answer it, you lose something in the end. I'm going to say this right now. Playing Before the Storm first and understanding Chloe's character had a big impact on my decision at the end of the game. Life is Strange 2. After I beat Life is Strange, I was bummed out when I found out that Life is Strange 2 didn't have anything to do with Max or Chloe. Instead, the game stars two new protagonists in sibling duo, Sean and Daniel Diaz. I'm not gonna lie, it took me a while to get into this one, but once I did, man. These poor kids, they go through so much shit that every chapter you're like, Jesus, what can go wrong now? Interestingly, in this entry, you don't play with the person that has superpowers, and instead you have to guide said person on the right path. You control Sean, who due to circumstances, has now become the father to his little brother, Daniel. Unlike playing Max, Daniel's actually the one with the powers. Throughout the game, as Sean, you need to teach Daniel to use his powers sparingly and how to be a good person, while at the same time struggling to make good decisions for the both of you. In my opinion, Life is Strange 2 has the most emotional-driven story out of the whole series. These poor kids go through so much crap, as I said before. Life is Strange 2 does have an awesome callback to the beginning of the series. As you progress through the story, you'll see a familiar face from the other two games, and depending on your decision of Life is Strange 1, can change his dialogue throughout the game. The Life is Strange games have some amazing storytelling. Your decisions have such a huge impact on the rest of the story that it's fun to go back and mess around with the outcomes. Even though as Max you can cheat and rewind to different outcomes. Since playing Before the Storm for the first time, I've gone back to mess around with different outcomes and see the differences that can take place. It also helps that the soundtracks of each game are great, and you'll find yourself listening to them on a notice pace.
Here comes a new challenger!
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the pandemics video. It's been almost 2 years, or a full year actually, since the 14-day lockdown was started. But we got through it, and slowly we're progressing, which is a plus. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Like, comment, subscribe, let us know what you would like to see from us more, and keep on the lookout for more Fighters Corner videos, and hopefully I get Lady Lavender to do a video about her horror stuff. So catch you guys next time.
Wow. Look at this lemon. Wow. Look at this lemon. Oh.